of the night, dwellers of the deep forests, followers of the ancient gods, wielders of bows and arrows. These are legends of a people older than history. They are the Irula, literally the people of darkness, descendants of the ancient hunter-gatherers who have dwelled in the forests of the Indian subcontinent for millennia. And like the name Irula itself, which is derived from the Tamil word for darkness, these people have lived in the shadows of what we know as civilization. A civilization that has much to learn from their ancient wisdom. It is spring, and I'm in the South Indian state of Tamilnadu, in the district called Chengalpattu, less than 100 kilometers from Chennai. My destination is the village called Kunapettu, which has one of the many Irula settlements that pepper this area. The timing of my arrival is good, as I've been told that the next morning a large hunting party will be leaving for a snake hunt. In the face of government strictures and other adversities, this is a practice that's becoming increasingly rare. Dawn breaks rapidly over the village of Kunapettu, where, as in every village across the country, the day begins early. Preparations are carefully made. Choppers are sharpened, tools of the trade are gathered. For a people who have traditionally depended on the forest for sustenance, these are desperate times. The walk to a suitable area is long and the group splits up. Mari and Maniamma, with their son, head towards fields a few kilometers away. An area less frequented by the Irulas, and therefore, with perhaps surer results for the family. Mari spots an area in the midst of the farmlands where the snakes are most likely to be found. In the dense hedges bordering fields that have been left fallow, they hope to hit pay dirt. And as the sun gains in intensity and the atmosphere grows hot, the hunt begins. Mari looks through the hedges for signs of the elusive reptile, mostly using his bare hands. This may look somewhat reckless, but it isn't. In this dangerous game of hide and seek, experience gathered through the centuries has developed in him a measure of respect for his prey. A snakeskin is found, It's a cobra skin, and Mari can tell that it's quite recent. And going by the thickness, it's over a meter long, the minimum length accepted by the Irula cooperative. For the last few centuries, one of the main sources of income for the Irulas had been the trade in snakeskin. With that coming to an abrupt end with the banning of the trade by the Indian government, the Irulas found themselves in major difficulties. This was the time when the Irula cooperative was set up. It tied the skills of the Irulas in catching snakes to the great demand for snake venom for the manufacture of anti-venom. Digging away tirelessly for more than half an hour, Mari nears the end of his quest. And as Mari works, Maniama watches anxiously. Catching a cobra quickly would mean leaving the rest of the day free for many other things that need to be done. Like most Irulas, Maniama too had married early. Barely literate and with no job-oriented skills like most of her clan members, she too would have been living in abject poverty. But for one thing, the Irula cooperative. Started in 1973, the Irula cooperative was meant to generate work for the Irulas. In this, it has perhaps had success beyond measure. Apart from giving the Irulas the chance to continue with their traditional skills, it has helped people like Maniama discover themselves. As a director of the cooperative, Maniama and others like her take decisions on the running of the cooperative. Assisted by the board secretary Dravidian, Maniama gets a chance to give shape not just to hers, but the lives of the Irula people. The snake hole goes deeper than anticipated. Taking a twig, Mari tries to feel for some telltale movements. Disappointment is a large part of life for the Irulas and is borne stoically. There's nothing to be done but to continue. Methodically, they work their way through the area. In this profession, patience invariably yields results. And at last, their doggedness is rewarded in the form of a cobra. Like all wild animals, the snake tries to flee from a stronger opponent. But with its escape route blocked, it attacks with the ferocity of one whose freedom is at stake. Mari deals with an angry and vindictive opponent, calling upon his own experience and skills inherited from his forefathers. Holding the snake by the tail, Mari makes it attack a piece of cloth time and again. And after a while, the cobra begins to tire. Using his iron staff, Mari finally manages to pin its head down. Maniama checks the cloth bag for holes, while Mari makes sure that the snake isn't marked by the cooperative. It takes about 6 months for the mark to go, about the time it takes for the venom to regain its potency. Hence, a marked snake wouldn't be accepted by the cooperative. It's afternoon when the capture is finally made, much too late for another hunt. But they still have enough time to deposit the snake at the Irula cooperative. It's many miles to the cooperative, and to reach it before closing time, they have to take a bus. work over for the day, family relaxes, as today's catch has ensured that they won't have to worry too much about food and other necessities for the next few days. I feel that the bus journey is perhaps symbolic of the distance that the Irulas have traveled over the last few years. With the word tribal attached to them, the Irulas had been consigned to the edge of our collective consciousness. But now, the confidence that Mari and Maniama exude is reflected in the changed perceptions of society. About 40 miles from Chennai, near the town of Mahabalipuram, lies the Venom extraction center. And for people like Mari, it is more than an organization that helps generate income for them. To them, it is also a source of identity and the provider of a chance to keep alive the traditions and the skills of his forefathers. Donning protective boots, Mari enters the snake pit where almost 1,000 poisonous reptiles await milking of their venom. Mari's contribution is weighed. As it is taken out of the bag, the cobra makes a last attempt at freedom, but is foiled. Like thousands of reptiles before, now this one too will be an unwitting contributor to the welfare of humanity. The cobra fetches Mari a sum of 500 rupees, about 11 US dollars, much more than he would have earned doing any kind of manual labor. But if the hazards of the job are considered, and the lives this may save, then perhaps the price is not high. The Irulas usually have one main meal in the day, and Mari's family is no exception. With food and 2 lanterns bought with the day's earnings, Maniama sets about preparing dinner. In this, she has eager help from both Mari and their son. Rice is the staple of the Irulas, as it is for the entire region. And today, a simple curry of potatoes, onions, and spices serves as dinner. Occasionally, as a special treat, meat is also eaten. Wild rabbits, chicken, rats, and termites are all food for the Irulas. Like every Irula family, the Irula society is a very compact unit where everyone joins in to support others and to solve minor disagreements. In this aspect, they are similar to most indigenous people in the country and dislike any form of outside intervention in matters they consider private. It is this unity, perhaps, that has helped the Irulas preserve their identity in the face of numerous attempts to absorb them into the homogeneous mainstream. It is their strength, and sometimes can be a weakness as well. During my visit to the Irula cooperative, I met Dravidian Money. This articulate secretary of the cooperative is the face of the organization to the rest of the world. Though not one of them himself, he is one of the most knowledgeable persons on the Irulas and their ways. Being one of the few people that the Irulas trust their affairs with, he is in a unique position to help them and guide them in an increasingly complex world. This he has achieved to some extent while preserving one of the most valuable possessions of the Irulas, their identity. And from him I learned of the circumstances in which the Irula cooperative came into existence.
So in 1972, the government of India they passed wildlife protection.
Concerned about the impact on the ecology by the rampant killing of snakes for their skin, the trade in snakeskin was banned by the government of India in 1972. The hardest hit by this ban were the Irulas, the largest suppliers of skin to the traders. Already deprived of their natural home, the forests, the Irulas suddenly found that the skills they had acquired over the centuries had turned worthless. On the other hand, there was a huge demand for snake venom, needed for the manufacture of anti-venom serum, the only cure for snakebite. It was to exploit this demand that the Irula Cooperative was set up in 1978. Systems were put in place whereby each member of the cooperative is allotted a quota of the kind of snakes and the number of each they are allowed to catch. This helps in keeping the stocks of venom even and also enables the cooperative in meeting the market's demand. Its teeth sinking into the plastic sheet, the cobra releases the precious liquid. The quantity of venom gathered from one bite is enough to kill several persons, and at about $130 a gram, it is more valuable than gold. Now, instead of taking away a life, the venom will help save a few. The venom of each species is extracted separately. The container is then freeze-dried into crystals and sent off to the pharmaceutical companies, where it is then processed to produce the life-giving anti-venom serum. Having done its good deed for the week, the snake is glad to return to its dark and welcoming pot, its home for perhaps another 2 weeks. The buzz of commerce envelops the senses in Mahabalipuram. In most parts of India, as the urban sprawl makes further inroads into the villages, it smothers the older, simpler ways of life. But even as mass-produced gods crowd onto the streets just a few miles away, in the Irula village called Kunnapettu, some of the ancient ways still survive. In every Irula village, an iron trident greets the visitor. What had started as a forked staff used for hunting snakes has given way to this patently Hindu symbol. Centuries back, the forefathers of the Irulas had found their gods in the elements of nature, worshipping them in the form of the sun, moon, sky, and the trees of the forests. With the advent of Hinduism, they too took to idol worship. Initially in the form of stones decorated with vermilion, and in recent times even using bricks. But the advent of the Hindu pantheon notwithstanding, the principal deity of the Irulas still remains the same. Kaniamma, or the Virgin Goddess, is the one the Irulas have their faith in times of peril, in sickness and in disease, for wisdom and prosperity. It is she who the Irulas will look towards. Worship of the goddess is called a puja, and the village priest the pujari. As he decorates himself for the ceremony, others adorn the village temple with intricate designs made with chalk powder. According to legend, the goddess created the first Irula from her sweat. This helped the Irula gain some magical properties. And in some regions where the Irula also collect honey, it comes in particularly handy. They believe that being created in this manner makes them immune to bee stings. The priest's ceremonial garlands are brought out, and as he puts them on, surrounded by leaves of the neem tree, flowers, and coconuts, I can't help thinking of the timelessness of this moment, repeated through the centuries, virtually unchanged. It is early evening by the time the preparations are completed. First, lighting a few lumps of camphor, the priest then lights a small wood fire. The villagers gather around as the slow, mesmeric beat of the priest's drum fills the still air. And a thousands of years old ceremony begins. In most cultures, a priest acts as the interpreter for the devotee, relaying the person's wishes to the gods through intricate chants and complex rituals. Among the Irulas, however, connection between Kaniyama and her followers is much more immediate. Before the ceremony started, I was told by the priest that the purpose of the puja was to ask for permission from Kaniyama for an impending marriage. And another equally important objective was to seek her blessings for a successful snake hunt and protection from snakebite. Often, during times of difficulties, the priest would be the first person an Irula consults. On such occasions, the priest would conduct a puja, a ceremony such as this. He would sing out the problem faced by the man and ask for an answer. It is believed by the Irulas that Kaniyama then descends into the priest's body and answers through him. The iron trident in front of the temple is adorned with neem leaves and lemon. Offerings of fruit, betel leaves, and a coconut are arranged in front of the deity. And then the priest ends his chant. It is time to conclude the puja with the offering of the coconut. As the villagers bow down before the temple, dusk envelops us. In the charged atmosphere, I am almost sure that the next day's snake hunt will be particularly fruitful. The Irulas have always considered the forest to be their natural home. Since time immemorial, it has given them all that they had required. Food, shelter, and their very identity has been derived from the forests. However, what remains of the once dense forest cover of the Indian subcontinent is now under government protection. In effect, the Irulas have been turned out of their home. Their lifestyle, their traditions and heritage, all wiped out in a single stroke. The Irulas can count themselves lucky that at least some of their skills as hunters are being put to use. As always, it's a deadly game of hide and seek. Prodding among the bushes, these men look for clues to lead them to their quarry. And as always, the prey is well camouflaged and elusive. Finally, the snake is caught. It's a Russell's viper. With venom as deadly as a cobra's, it will fetch a good price at the cooperative. Warmed by the afternoon sun, the viper is as agile as the swifter cobra. And the man has to be extra careful in handling it. With the snake finally in his control, the man checks it for markings and for the condition of its fangs. A previously marked snake or one with broken fangs would be of no use to the Irula cooperative. As these men duel with the snake, I realize that they are possibly the last of the Irulas to live in a semblance of the traditional ways of their ancestors. In many regions of rural India, the indigenous people, or Adivasi as they are called, are considered pariahs. Consequently, a lot of avenues of employment are blocked for them that are otherwise available to an average villager. Well-constructed houses, tiled roofs, and cattle are not their lot. Jobs for the Irulas are mostly limited to hired labor in the local fields and farms. And as more and more of the traditional agricultural laborers are migrating to the cities or are becoming increasingly contumacious, Irulas are a welcome alternative for the land-owning farmers. Due to their economic condition and also their semi-nomadic lifestyle, the Irula hut is at best a makeshift affair, constructed with palm leaves, with mud walls, and sometimes just palm leaves. The Irulas prefer such mud and thatch affairs to more permanent structures. Attempts by the government to provide cement and tile huts have only proved partially successful. To repair a battered roof, Muttan salvages old palm leaves from a broken down shack, preferring this to investment in fresh palm leaves. Tied together with coconut straw, the leaves go up one by one. It takes the better part of the day, but eventually the job gets done. Muttan's hut is ready to withstand another monsoon. Farmlands provide another source of employment for the Irulas. And like snake catching, this too is a traditional skill. with catching snakes, there is another animal the Irulas are equally adept at catching: field rats. Where there's always a scarcity of food, this can be seen as another example of the Irula's ability to adapt. Uncultivated land with mounds of loose soil betray the presence of rats, and the men dig in earnest. Although this will fetch them hardly any money, this search will produce far surer results than snakes. In just a few moments, the rat hole yields a sizable bounty in the form of grain that the pests have secreted away. None of the precious grain may go waste. Loose grain that scatter from the sheaf and mingle with the dust aren't lost. Fistfuls of the grain-laden sand are picked up and sifted. Using his fingers as a sieve, the man lets the sand filter through. And in only a few minutes, as if by some wizardry, precious grains emerge. Every year, rodents alone are responsible for the destruction of millions of tons of food grain. And the use of pesticides has generally proved ineffective in controlling these pests. In collaboration with government agencies, farmers now employ the Irulas to keep rodent populations in check. This is not only more economical, but also poses no health hazards. And for the Irulas, it's not just the grain they recover that are edible. The rats are taken out one by one and their teeth broken. This ensures that they neither bite nor chew their way through the cloth bag. It is quite usual for the Irulas to be short of food for days at a time, and at times like these, their eclectic taste in food comes in handy. A taste that includes rats, termites, mongoose, turtles, and monitor lizards. With enough rats for a snack, they head out for a suitable spot. The gods have been kind today. A windswept, rocky area is chosen. With a bunch of dry twigs in place, the men set about arranging the rats on them. It takes a few minutes for the rats to be roasted. Turning them over the fire, they wait for the meat to get cooked. For these men, eating rats may be considered a treat, but it is also a very necessary means of survival. Rat meat for them is a rich source of protein. It is another example of the resourcefulness and adaptability that has helped the Irula survive tremendous adversities. Among the Irulas, incidents of snakebite are not uncommon. In such cases, the victim does not head for the city hospital that stocks anti-venom. Instead, he consults a Waidyar, the village medicine man, or in this case, a medicine woman. After inquiring about the kind of snake that has bitten the patient, she sets to work. As it is a milder variety of snake, traditional remedies will do. In case of a more venomous reptile, nothing but anti-venom serum would have worked. Navakunchi, a medicinal root that has anti-venom properties, is rubbed on a stone to produce a paste. This is applied to the wound, and a few drops are fed to the patient. Does he find it bitter? He does. That is a good sign, as it means the poison hasn't affected him much yet. After finishing the treatment, the tourniquet on the patient's arm is loosened, and he's advised to take a salt-free diet for a few days. And treating their patron goddess Kanyamma to protect them from disease, a group of Irulas cross a dry lake bed. They are returning from an early trip to the forest to collect medicinal herbs. And in their bags they carry the cure for scores of ailments. On the way, they meet another group headed for the forest. The Irulas are people of the forests, and while navigating through the jungles for millennia, they have collected a vast reservoir of knowledge about their habitat, and where every plant, its bark, and its fruit has some beneficial, perhaps even life-saving property, this knowledge is invaluable. These women are part of the Irula Tribal Women's Welfare Society, an organization that is helping in the empowerment of the Irula women. This forest is situated in a hilly belt of Chengalpattu district in northeastern Tamil Nadu, and is about 4 miles from the society. And in the times of mass deforestation, this forest has survived unscathed. Believed to be under the protection of Kanyamma, the bulldozers have given it a miss. Teeming with a variety of plants and herbs, this forest is one of the few remaining sources of the Irula's traditional medicine. For a people whose family medicine cabinet has been the forest itself, a teeming herbarium of roots and leaves, progress has meant unlearning all their traditional knowledge and skills. Skills that have been learnt painstakingly through the oral tradition, through practice, and trial and error. Today, as they pluck the herbs, they not only help cure various ailments, but ensure that a way of life does not die with them. At the Irula Tribal Women's Welfare Society, I meet its chief coordinator, K. Krishnan.
See, the tribes never disturbed the forest, but the British people wanted to take over all the resources, and that's why they.
Krishnan says that, as the Irula cooperative was principally helping snake catchers, who are mostly men, there was a need to set up an organization for women as well. The society was created with this purpose in mind.
Like the gender perspective, and the culture, and the community. This society.
The society, he says, came into being mainly to empower women. And in that, it has been a success story.
1889 onwards, I took in charge. And it has been moved from Vadanami to this area. And then
the Welfare Society's brochure of herbal medicines markets it as a herbal tea. These delicate yellow flowers of the Cassia auriculata, or avarum in Tamil, can revitalize the heart, the eyes, and help regulate diabetes. Traditionally, the Irula's knowledge of medicine was jealously guarded to be passed on to a trusted heir. One of the principal efforts of the society has been in convincing the Irulas to share this treasure trove. And in documenting the traditional scientific knowledge and skills of the Irula women, they have ensured that this knowledge will not become extinct. In trying to spread the benefits of the medicine, the society has started marketing various herbal products, from hair care products to concoctions that can treat asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and many other life-threatening diseases. The list of products is long and impressive. And though the market for the products is yet to be of any significance, this is more due to the lack of awareness than a reflection on the quality of the product. But as the women sort out the herbs, cleaning and drying them, such marketing problems recede to the background. I feel that the society's biggest achievement is not in popularizing herbal medicine, but in stimulating in these women a stronger sense of identity. Rhythmic thumps grind the dried herbs into powder. This is then strained through fine muslin cloth. Using formulae handed down from generation to generation, and in complex processes where the making of one medicine can involve up to 50 different herbs. The powders are then carefully mixed in the right proportions and packaged, ready to be dispatched. And for medicine that's backed by 1,000 years of experience, the price is not too high. The day's tiredness falls away. The soaring voices and the pounding rhythm lift everyone's spirits. As I sit among them, their energy and their sheer will to be alive seeps into me. Theirs is a celebration of the triumph of the spirit over circumstances. The song they are singing calls the goddess Nilamma to come and join them for a celebration. The tempo soars. Everyone joins in. And a young girl collapses. It is a sign from Nilamma. She has arrived. Lakshmi Amma is one of the most reputed Vaidyas or practitioners of traditional medicine among the Irulas. As she collects herbs for her medicines, she makes it a point to take along her grandson, Murugan. As he tags along with her, Murugan is back where he belongs. The forests are where he and his ancestors have come from, and this is where lies his future. The next generation of Vaidyar gets hands-on training. The myriad properties of each herb absorb through all the senses. Murugan, however, does not approve of the taste. But Lakshmi Amma is resolute, and like a dry sponge, Murugan soaks up this precious commodity. Bit by bit, the baton of knowledge is passed on to younger hands. But even a stream of instructions from his grandmother does not seem to daunt Murugan. Lakshmi Amma and Murugan arrive in search of herbs. The only Vaidyar in her village, no one else to take her place, Lakshmi Amma is only too aware of the urgency of the situation. The chirping of birds, the rustle of dry leaves. Lakshmi Amma is reminded of the time when she used to accompany her mother. In Murugan, she has someone to hand over a 3,000-year-old legacy. And for an ancient civilization, in every Murugan, there is hope of a new day.